Diablo 4 is the latest installment in the iconic role-playing and action game series from Blizzard. We have had the opportunity to play it extensively and are excited to bring you our video analysis of the return to Sanctuary. November 1, 2019 is a date that few will forget, as it was the day Blizzard announced the return of the Diablo series with Diablo 4. 3.5 years later, the game has finally arrived on computers and consoles, allowing us to return to the feared, dark, and brutal world of Sanctuary. We have tested the game thoroughly and will now provide our review. The story revolves around Lilith and her plans for Sanctuary. As heroes, it is our duty to prevent this daughter of hatred from fulfilling her plans. The narrative is more immature than in previous entries, with a greater emphasis on storytelling, some plot twists, surprises, and interesting moments. Although not a masterpiece in terms of storytelling, the plot is enjoyable, accompanied by a dark and mature touch that should have never left the series. The campaign structure and missions are fun, although some moments feel artificially stretched to increase its duration. Diablo 4 is loaded with secondary content that drastically increases the game's playtime. However, the campaign structure could have been more complex and modern. The various acts of the campaign consist of going to a point, talking to an ally, completing 2 main missions, and finally reaching the end. This also occurs when completing objectives where players may need to backtrack to find certain items. Blizzard could have opted for a more complex structure. The game's character creation process begins by choosing a class from Rogue, Necromancer, Sorcerer, Barbarian, or Druid. Afterward, players can customize the character's appearance. Each class in Diablo 4 is versatile, with several possibilities in the skill tree. Players can balance complexity and customization options with ease. Diablo 4's gameplay is classic, with a refined and flexible interface that allows players to assign skills to all available buttons. Combat is typical of Diablo, with hordes of enemies that attack players with lightning, ice, and all sorts of abilities that players must dodge. The new dodge button is a great addition to the game, allowing players to use it offensively or defensively. Bosses are more complex than before, requiring players to be attentive to mechanics, hits, and different stages of combat. Diablo 4 has a plethora of secondary content such as random events, over 150 secondary dungeons, and small rooms to clean quickly. There are also several interesting side missions that are like mini-campaigns. The in-game content is complete with various tasks to access new difficulty levels, temporary objectives, and terrifying nightmare dungeons. The game's progression system is linked to players' Blizzard accounts, allowing cross-play and cross-progression. The game's art design and sound are excellent, with a dark and eerie atmosphere that is as historically accurate to the series. The game is technically polished, with few technical errors and no serious connectivity issue. Although there is a microtransaction store, it only affects the character's appearance and not the gameplay. The launch price of the game's cosmetic items is high, but it is not a significant issue. In conclusion, Diablo 4 marks the return of Blizzard to greatness. The game is enjoyable, addictive, and satisfying to both new and veteran players. The game's content is vast, spanning many hours beyond the campaign. Diablo 4 embraces the series' dark and bloody tone, providing a mature narrative, complex secondary content, and a complete endgame. The game's launch connectivity was smooth, and the game's performance is impressive. Diablo 4 is a must-play for all fans of the series.